Imagine being drafted into a highly dangerous, like, one-man elite special forces unit
Yeah.
before you've even taken your first breath.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you don't get to read the terms and conditions, you don't get a choice in your diet, and you are literally mandated to wage a solitary guerrilla war against an occupying empire.
Sounds intense.
It really is. Today we're unpacking the origin story of history's most chaotic, flawed, and, well, heavily debated hero. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
And before we unpack this wildly complex ancient narrative, I actually want to take a moment to offer a blessing for you, the listener. May your day be filled with peace, and may the week ahead bring you clarity, purpose, and a profound sense of grace in whatever you are facing right now. We are so glad you're here with us.
Yeah, it really is a great space to be in. And, that concept of grace, specifically unmerited, kind of chaotic grace, is the absolute center of gravity for the historical text we're examining today.
Exactly. So we are pulling from the Holman and NBRA study Bibles, specifically zooming in on Judges chapter 13. And if you're wondering why we are cross-referencing these specific study notes, well, it's because they strip away that sanitized, illustrated Sunday school varnish that usually coats the story of Samson.
Right, because the real story is definitely not for kids.
Not at all. They force us to look at the raw, ancient Near Eastern cultural context. I mean, we're looking at political apathy, intense supernatural encounters, some surprisingly sharp marital comedy.
Which is so good.
It really is, and deep psychological paradoxes. But to even begin to understand why a figure like Samson was necessary, we have to look at the geopolitical landscape of Israel in the 11th century BC.
Yeah, so the book of Judges historically outlines a very repetitive, self-destructive cycle for the nation of Israel.
A classic cycle.
Right, the pattern usually goes like this. The people abandon their covenant, they lose their divine protection, an enemy nation oppresses them, and then the Israelites suffer and cry out for rescue.
And then a hero shows up.
Exactly. A judge or military deliverer is raised up, they are liberated, peace returns, and then, a generation later, they just start the whole cycle all over again.
But the era we are looking at today breaks that cycle in a really disturbing way.
Yeah.
Israel is under a 40-year oppression by the Philistines.
Yeah.
That is 2 entire generations born into subjugation.
That's a long time.
Yeah, and based on the historical context in our sources, the Philistines weren't just a casual nuisance. They were a sophisticated coastal people with ancient origins, and they held a massive technological advantage over Israel.
A huge one. They held a strict monopoly on iron blacksmithing.
Wow, so no iron for Israel.
None at all. The Philistines basically controlled the military and agricultural technology of the entire region. I mean, if an Israelite wanted to, say, sharpen a plowshare, they had to go to a Philistine blacksmith and pay a premium.
That's brilliant strategically.
Oh, absolutely. This deliberately ensured that the Israelites couldn't manufacture iron swords or spears. It was a comprehensive economic and military chokehold designed to keep Israel totally defenseless.
Which makes the detail highlighted in the study notes so jarring. In every previous cycle of oppression in this text, it explicitly says the Israelites cried out to the Lord, like they begged for a rescue.
Wait, that was the catalyst.
But here, after 40 years of Philistine dominance, there's this shocking omission. Nobody is crying out. Nobody is praying for deliverance.
They've completely assimilated.
Yeah.
The oppression has just simply become their normal. I mean, they have intermarried, they're participating in the local economy, and they have basically accepted their status as a subjugated people.
Right.
The desire for independence has entirely evaporated.
Wait, I'm kind of stuck on this dynamic, though, because if they aren't even asking for help, isn't staging a massive divine intervention essentially, well, a violation of their agency?
That's a really good question.
Like, why force a rebellion on a population that has clearly decided they'd rather just keep their heads down and survive? It's like launching a hostile multi-million-dollar corporate rescue package for a subsidiary company that has already, legally signed itself over to a rival firm. They didn't ask for the buyout.
I love that analogy, and that is the exact philosophical tension the text wants you to feel. It really forces us to wrestle with the nature of divine intervention versus human complacency.
Right.
The theological takeaway here in the notes is that this specific deliverance is entirely unmerited. It is initiated entirely from the top down.
So it's not a response to anything they did.
No, not at all. The rescue mission is not a response to human repentance or a cry for help. It is God unilaterally deciding to intervene simply because he is honoring his end of an ancient covenant.
Even when the other party is completely checked out.
Exactly. Even then.
So a forced rescue mission.
Yeah.
And because the nation is far too apathetic to actually raise an army or follow a military leader, this rescuer can't just be handed a sword and a battalion.
Right, there's no army to lead.
He has to be biologically engineered for a solitary mission.
Yeah.
And you see this national apathy trickling all the way down to the micro level, right into the living room of a family in the town of Zorah.
Yeah, so we are introduced to a woman from the tribe of Dan, and crucially, she is unnamed and she is barren.
Which is huge.
Yes.
Oh.
In ancient Near Eastern literature, a barren woman giving birth is never just a casual medical detail. It is a flashing neon literary marker.
It's the ancient text's way of bolding and highlighting the next sentence, basically.
Precisely. We see this motif with Sarah giving birth to Isaac and later with Hannah giving birth to Samuel. It essentially signals to the reader that natural human progression has stopped and a massive historical disruption is about to be birthed.
And the disruption arrives when the text says, the angel of the Lord appears to this barren woman with a birth announcement.
Yes.
Let's dig into the linguistics here, actually, because the study notes spend a lot of time on this specific entity.
They do. So the Hebrew word used in the text is malach, which fundamentally just means messenger.
Like a normal guy delivering mail.
Well, it can absolutely refer to human ambassadors carrying news between kings, but when the text elevates it to the specific phrase, the angel of the Lord, it carries a much, much heavier theological weight.
So we aren't talking about, a glowing guy with wings and a harp.
Far from it. The scholarly consensus in these notes is that this phrase indicates a theophany.
A theophany.
Yeah, a physical, recognizable manifestation of God himself interacting directly with humanity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is a terrifying, awe-inspiring collision between the divine realm and the dirt of ancient Israel.
And this divine manifestation drops a heavy set of rules on this future mother. He tells her the child must be a Nazirite to God from the womb to the day of his death.
Which is a huge commitment.
For sure. And for you listening, if you aren't familiar with ancient Israelite laws, a Nazirite vow, which is outlined in the book of Numbers, involved 3 strict rules. First, no consuming anything from a grapevine. No wine, no grapes, no raisins.
No.
Second, no touching anything dead, which was about maintaining ritual purity. And third, a razor must never touch his head.
And, the prohibition against the grapevine is particularly interesting here. Grapes essentially represented settled, agrarian, Canaanite culture.
Like civilization.
Exactly. By forbidding the fruit of the vine, the vow forces the individual into a state of radical, wilderness-level dependence on God. It visually and culturally separates them from the assimilated society around them.
And the crazy part is, the angel tells the mother she has to adopt this diet immediately.
Yeah.
Like the consecration starts in utero.
Right, before he's even born.
This kid doesn't get to turn 18 and decide if he wants to join the priesthood. His very biology is weaponized for a divine purpose before he has a single conscious thought.
Which is a really stark deviation from the norm. A traditional Nazirite vow was almost always voluntary and it was temporary.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, a person would take the vow for, say, a few months to seek God, and then they'd shave their head, offer a sacrifice, and just go back to normal life.
So Samson's situation, this non-consensual lifelong genetic draft, is incredibly rare.
It's extremely rare. It's shared only by a handful of major historical pivots like John the Baptist later on. It basically signifies that this child's entire existence is not his own. He is property of a singular divine mission.
If you're listening to this and trying to put yourself in this woman's shoes, just imagine the sheer weight of that encounter.
It's overwhelming.
You've just met a physical manifestation of the divine, discovered you're pregnant with a genetically drafted super soldier, and been handed a lifelong dietary restriction plan. What is your next move?
You go find your husband.
You go find your husband. And the psychological portrait that follows is genuinely one of my favorite parts of this entire historical record.
Oh, it is a brilliant display of human insecurity reacting to the supernatural.
Yes.
The wife finds her husband, Manoah, and delivers a remarkably composed report. She says a man of God came to her. His appearance was terrifying like an angel. She didn't ask where he was from, and she didn't get his name. She just relies on the instructions.
She is all business. But Manoah, if you've ever dealt with an insecure middle manager who got CC'd late on a really important email and suddenly needs to, assert authority over the project, you will understand Manoah perfectly.
That is the perfect way to describe him.
He essentially has weight. A cosmic entity showed up to talk to you, and you didn't get his credentials. You didn't get a name. He immediately prays to God asking for the man to be sent back to teach us what to do.
Yeah, he is completely masking his feeling of being sidelined under the guise of needing further instruction. He wants to be the one taking the meeting and managing the details.
And the divine response to this is subtly hilarious. God grants the request, the angel returns. But he appears again only to the wife, while she is sitting alone in a field.
Manoah is nowhere to be found.
Nowhere.
The narrative is deliberately honoring the wife as the primary recipient of the revelation. She is the one trusted with the reality of the situation.
Exactly. She has to physically run and fetch Manoah so he can finally have his face-to-face meeting.
So Manoah arrives, desperately trying to regain control of the situation and show proper ancient Near Eastern hospitality. He offers to cook the visitor a young goat.
Which is absurd when you think about it.
Total absurdity.
He is trying to host a cosmic divine manifestation for a barbecue.
Right, and the angel immediately shuts it down. He tells Manoah, "Even if you detain me, I will not eat your food. But if you prepare a burnt offering, offer it to the Lord."
He's not there for lunch.
No. But Manoah is still completely oblivious to who he is speaking with. He pushes further and demands to know the angel's name, claiming he wants to honor him when the prophecy comes true.
Let's pause on this demand for a name, though, because there is a very specific mechanical reason why the angel refuses. In the ancient Near East, names were not just identifiers. What did it actually mean to know a deity's true name?
It meant leverage. Pure and simple.
Like magical leverage.
Exactly. In the surrounding pagan cultures, if you knew a local god's secret name, you could use it in incantations to summon them, bind them, or coerce them into doing your bidding. A name equaled a measure of control.
So by Manoah asking for the name, he's basically unconsciously trying to leash this entity.
Yes. And the angel's response establishes a massive theological boundary. He replies, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?"
Wonderful.
But the Hebrew word used for wonderful here doesn't mean pleasant or nice. It means incomprehensible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is a declaration of total transcendence. The angel is basically telling Manoah, "My nature is entirely beyond your cognitive capacity. You cannot summon me, you cannot leash me, and you certainly cannot control me."
It is a profound reality check.
Mm-hmm.
Manoah eventually follows the instruction, though. He places the goat and grain on a rock as an offering. And as the flames from the altar blaze up toward the sky, the angel of the Lord physically ascends within the column of fire, disappearing into the sky.
Quite an exit.
Yeah, and this is the exact moment Manoah's brain finally catches up to the reality of his afternoon.
The sheer terror just fully sets in. The text notes that both Manoah and his wife fall face down to the ground.
But Manoah goes into a full-blown panic attack. He looks at his wife and screams, "We are certainly going to die because we have seen God."
Right. And his panic is rooted in a very real, very established, ancient theological premise that human corruption cannot survive direct exposure to the unfiltered holiness of God.
So it's not totally unjustified.
No, to see God face to face historically meant instant death.
He assumes they're about to spontaneously combust. But the wife, and man, this is why she is the unsung hero of this entire chapter, she delivers an absolute masterclass in deductive reasoning.
She really does.
While her husband is practically checking his own pulse, she looks at him and systematically dismantles his panic. She says, "If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering from our hands. He would not have shown us all these things. And he certainly would not have just announced we are having a baby."
Her logic is absolutely impenetrable. She bypasses the emotional hysteria and focuses on the concrete evidence of divine intention.
She is the theological anchor of the family. The contrast between Manoah's fear-driven superstition and his wife's faith-driven pragmatism is such a vivid, relatable snapshot of human nature.
It really is.
So this incredibly grounded, logical woman gives birth to the boy, and they name him Samson.
And the study notes suggest the name Samson is derived from the Hebrew word for sun, possibly reflecting the proximity of their town to Beth Shemesh, which means the house of the sun.
Makes sense.
As the boy grows, the text notes that the Spirit of the Lord begins to impel or stir him.
And this sets up the grand, tragic paradox of the remainder of this story. Because Samson grows up to be the 12th and final judge of this era, operating around the 11th century BC. He is granted unparalleled supernatural physical strength.
Unmatched.
But he is a profoundly, deeply flawed human being.
The man is a walking contradiction. I mean, we discussed those strict Nazirite vows earlier. No touching dead things, no drinking wine, no cutting his hair. Right.
As an adult, Samson systematically shatters every single one of those boundaries.
The sources outline a life of total impulse control failure. Like, he tears a lion apart with his bare hands and later decides to scoop honey out of its rotting carcass to eat, completely violating the rule against touching dead bodies just for a sweet snack.
Just for a smack.
Then he throws massive multi-day feasts, which in that cultural context required heavy drinking, shattering the vow against the grapevine. And his arrogance eventually leads to the famous incident with Delilah, costing him his hair.
And his operational style is also completely anomalous compared to previous judges.
How so?
Well, leaders like Gideon or Deborah rallied the tribes, they organized military campaigns, and led unified armies. Samson never commands a single soldier.
He operates entirely alone.
Entirely.
And I guess it circles back to that iron monopoly and the complacency we talked about at the beginning. If he tried to raise an army, the assimilated Israelites would have just handed him over to the Philistines to keep the peace.
Which, actually, they do try to do later in his life. Right, they literally try to tie him up.
Exactly. He has to be a lone agent provocateur. Furthermore, remember the specific phrasing the angel used in the birth announcement.
When was it?
The angel said Samson would begin to deliver Israel. He was never commissioned to finish the job. His purpose was simply to fracture the status quo, to break the peaceful assimilation, and force a conflict.
I look at all of this, the broken vows, the arrogance, the complete lack of discipline, and I just have to wonder about the mechanics of this divine plan. Like, why build this incredibly elaborate prenatal special forces draft for a guy who turns out to be such an absolute mess?
It's a great question.
Why use a vessel that is so compromised?
The profound literary and theological conclusion drawn by the scholars in these notes is that Samson is not just a flawed hero. He is a living, breathing, physical portrait of the nation of Israel itself.
Okay, wait. Unpack the mechanism behind that mirror analogy for me. How does his life reflect the nation?
Think about the parallels. Israel was miraculously brought into existence by divine intervention. They were set apart, given immense potential, and bound by a specific covenant to remain holy and separate from the nations around them.
Right, the Sinai covenant.
Well, what did Israel do? They compromised. They fraternized with their enemies. They abandoned their vows for temporary comforts, and they fully assimilated into Philistine culture.
Which is exactly what Samson does on a micro level.
Yes. Samson is the microcosm of his nation. He is miraculously born, set apart by a holy vow, and given immense power, yet he continually compromises with the Philistines, chases his own impulses, and breaks his covenant.
Wow.
His tragic, chaotic life perfectly mirrors the tragic, chaotic status of the people he was born to protect.
He is the literal embodiment of Israel's dysfunction. That completely reframes the entire narrative for me. We aren't reading an ancient comic book about a perfect superhero.
Not at all.
We are reading a devastating psychological and historical critique of a nation, wrapped up in the biography of one man. Despite his overwhelming failures, his selfishness, and his blatant disregard for the rules, his raw power is still utilized to disrupt the Philistine oppression.
It demonstrates that divine purpose often operates within the deeply muddy waters of human reality. The unmerited top-down rescue initiated by God is carried out by a deeply imperfect, heavily compromised vessel.
Yeah.
It is messy, it is tragic, but it ultimately sets the required deliverance in motion.
Which brings our deep dive to a close, connecting the threads from a complacent nation that refused to ask for help, to a terrifying theophany in a field, to a brilliantly logical wife managing her husband's panic attack, all resulting in the birth of history's most paradoxical hero.
It's wild.
It really forces us to recognize that historical progress and divine intent rarely unfold in clean, predictable lines.
No, they don't. It is complex, it is deeply layered, and it is unflinchingly human.
And that leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you to carry into your week. Based on the complex reality of the sources we've unpacked today, if Samson, a man who repeatedly shattered his most sacred vows, who struggled with immense arrogance, and who constantly sabotaged his own potential, was still utilized as the catalyst for a massive historical shift,
Right.
how might your own imperfections, your own missteps, and your own flaws not actually disqualify you from playing a crucial role in a bigger picture you just can't quite see yet?
It's an empowering philosophical question to sit with, and a reminder that perfection is rarely a prerequisite for purpose.
Thank you so much for exploring the raw, unvarnished realities of this ancient text with us today. We love taking these deep dives with you.
Keep analyzing the context, keep asking the hard questions, and keep looking for the bigger picture behind the stories you thought you knew.
God blesses all the listeners. Take care.